The giant awoke before dawn with a field of names still burning in his mind. They had covered a pale surface that seemed part tablet, part book. Row after row, the marks had stood in perfect order, as though every living being had been entered into a record older than memory. Then the names began to disappear. Not one at a time. Almost all at once. The surface darkened as line after line was erased, washed away, or hidden beneath something the dream would not allow him to see. When the vision ended, only a few names remained. He did not recognize them. He did not know why they had been spared. And for the first time in the damaged ancient story, a being feared by the world around him was afraid of a piece of writing. The fragments call this giant Haya. At least, that is the name scholars recover from the broken text. What he did after waking is partly lost. The manuscript fails at the very place where the scene should become clear. Yet enough survives to suggest that he carried the dream to others of his kind, searching for someone who had seen the same warning. There he learned that another giant had awakened disturbed. Ohaya had not seen a tablet. He had seen a garden. It stretched before him in darkness, filled with trees whose branches seemed to cover the land. For a moment, everything was still. Then something entered the vision. The surviving pieces do not preserve the entire scene. They offer only its first movement. The garden was about to be destroyed. Ohaya could not see the full force approaching it, but he understood that the trees were in danger. Some were removed. Others seemed to fall. A small part of the garden may have remained, though the damaged lines leave the exact image uncertain. One dream showed names disappearing. The other showed a living world beginning to fall. The giants did not yet know whether the visions were connected. But neither of them believed the dreams were ordinary. They gathered while the sky was still dark. The ancient story gives no complete description of their meeting place, so only the shape of the moment can be imagined, immense figures standing beneath fading stars, their voices lowered as they compared what they had seen. Around them, their world continued as before. Fires glowed in distant settlements. Night wind moved over the ground. No army appeared on the horizon. No city had fallen. Nothing visible had changed. Yet Haya could still see the emptied surface. Ohaya could still see the first movement of destruction through the garden. One had been shown who might disappear. The other had been shown what might happen to the world that held them. But why? And who had sent the warning? The giants belonged to an ancient story preserved in fragments known today as the Book of Giants. The fragments are real. They were identified among the Dead Sea Scrolls, the manuscripts found in caves near Qumran, beside the northwestern shore of the Dead Sea. They were written in Aramaic more than 2,000 years ago. But the book did not survive whole. Much of it vanished before modern readers ever saw it. Names remain without complete conversations. Dreams emerge from torn edges. Journeys begin, disappear into missing lines, and return somewhere else. No complete ending survives. The manuscript endured almost exactly like the written surface in Haya's dream. Most of it disappeared. Only a small remnant remained. And within that remnant, the giants are waiting for an answer. The story belongs to the wider world of Enochic tradition. In that ancient religious literature, heavenly beings called Watchers descend into the human world and cross a boundary that should have remained unbroken. Their offspring are described as giants, beings of enormous power whose presence becomes tied to the corruption of the age before the flood. The Book of Giants enters the story after much of the damage has already been done. It does not begin by asking whether the giants will become powerful. They already are. It asks what happens when those who have never feared anything begin to receive warnings they cannot understand. Ohaya and Haya compare the visions again. The written surface. The garden. The vanished names. The threatened trees. They search for a difference that might separate the dreams, because if the visions are unrelated, one warning may still be escaped. But the more they speak, the closer the images seem to move. A written name preserves a life in memory. A tree stands rooted in the living earth. If the names are removed and the trees are destroyed, then both dreams may be describing the same loss in two languages. One speaks through writing, the other through the land. The giants begin to suspect that something larger than an enemy is approaching. Yet the warning offers no clear instruction. There is no road marked for escape. No weapon appears in the dream. No city is named as a refuge. Only a record emptied of nearly every name and a garden beginning to fall. Why would a warning reveal destruction without showing how to prevent it? And why would only a few remain? The ancient fragments do not let the listener stand safely outside this mystery. They pull everything closer, then break. A line suggests fear among the giants. Another preserves part of a discussion. A name appears. Then the parchment ends. Somewhere inside the missing passages, the giants decide that the dreams must be interpreted by someone beyond their own circle. That person is Enoch. He is a strange choice. Enoch is not remembered as a giant. He is not a warrior, ruler, or builder of walls. In Genesis, he appears only briefly, a man who walks with God and then is taken away. Later traditions open that short passage into a much larger world. There, Enoch becomes a scribe and visionary, someone able to see the hidden order behind the visible world. He reads heavenly signs, preserves knowledge, and carries messages between realms that ordinary people cannot cross. The giants have force. Enoch understands signs. For the first time, their survival may depend upon a man whose strength does not resemble theirs. But Enoch is far away. He is not waiting in one of their settlements. He cannot simply be summoned to stand before them. Someone must travel to him. The messenger chosen is Mahaway. His name appears within the surviving tradition like a figure entering through smoke. Parts of his journey are known only through damaged fragments and later related versions, but his purpose is clear. He must carry the dreams to Enoch. Before he leaves, the giants gather around him. Haya gives him the image of the tablet or book. Its surface had been crowded with names, then nearly emptied. Ohaya gives him the garden, the trees, and the first sign of their destruction. Mahaway must remember every detail. He must explain what the giants themselves cannot explain. Perhaps they ask him which names remained. Perhaps they search their memories for marks they should have recognized. The surviving text does not preserve their exact words, and none should be invented for it. What remains is more unsettling than a complete conversation. The giants saw enough to be frightened. Not enough to understand. Mahaway prepares to leave before the warning becomes reality. Behind him lies a world shaped by the giants and by the watchers who came before them. According to the larger Enochic tradition, boundaries have been crossed, knowledge has been revealed, and the earth has been filled with disorder. Yet in the Book of Giants, the great catastrophe has not fully arrived. The sky remains open. The ground is still dry. The garden still stands somewhere within the vision. The names have disappeared only in a dream. There is still time to seek an answer. Or at least, the giants hope there is. Mahaway leaves their gathering and moves into the distance. The story follows him only in fragments. The landscape between the giants and Enoch has been torn from the page, leaving the journey suspended between surviving lines. Still, it is possible to feel its silence. The settlements of the giants fade behind him. The land opens beneath a wide night sky. Wind crosses bare ground and low hills. Distant mountains hold the last darkness before morning. Mahaway travels with no treasure and no weapon that matters. He carries two dreams. As he moves farther away, the warning begins to change. Among the giants, the visions had seemed like puzzles. On the road, they begin to feel like memories of something that has not happened yet. A written surface after the names are gone. A garden after the roots have failed. The world seen from the other side of its ending. But there is still a detail that does not fit. If the warning announces complete destruction, why did anything remain? Why were a few names left upon the surface? Why was the garden not shown as entirely empty? The surviving remnant may be the most important part of both dreams. The giants are not only being shown that many will vanish. They are being told that someone will continue. Someone will carry memory beyond whatever is approaching. But who? The fragments do not yet answer. Mahaway travels on. Behind him, Ohaya and Haya wait beneath the same sky, listening for changes in the wind and watching the horizon for a danger that has no visible shape. They have faced enemies before. This is different. An enemy can be seen approaching. A warning lives inside the mind. Every tree becomes part of the garden. Every written name becomes a possible victim. Every silence may be the beginning of the event they were shown. The giants cannot know whether Mahaway will return before the meaning reaches them in another form. The journey grows stranger as he nears the place associated with Enoch. In later traditions, the visionary seems removed from ordinary human life, living at the edge of the known world or beyond it. Reaching him is not described like entering the hall of a king. It feels like leaving one kind of world and approaching another. The air becomes still. The distant mountains darken. The last fires behind Mahaway are no longer visible. Ahead, beneath the fading stars, lies the place where the ancient scribe may be found. He is the one person remembered as able to read messages that powerful beings cannot. He may know who sent the dreams. He may know what force threatens the garden. He may know why the written names disappeared. And he may know the identity of the few that remained. As Mahaway approaches, one final possibility settles over the journey. The giants believe they had received two visions. But the tablet and the garden may never have been separate. They may be two halves of one warning. One shows whose names will be erased. The other shows what will happen to the world beneath them. Mahaway carries both halves toward Enoch. And somewhere beyond the darkness, the man who can unite them is waiting. ##. Mahaway reached the distant refuge near dawn. There were no walls around it, no guards watching the road, no fires burning from towers. Nothing announced the presence of a ruler or warned strangers to remain outside. After the restless settlements of the giants, the silence felt almost unnatural. The wind had fallen during the final stretch of the journey. Pale light rested along the hills, and the grasses stood motionless beneath the fading stars. Mahaway had crossed a world shaped by strength to reach a place where strength appeared to hold no value. Somewhere within that stillness was Enoch. Mahaway had expected to arrive carrying a mystery. Yet as he approached, another thought entered his mind. Enoch might already know why he had come. The surviving story gives only fragments of their meeting, but its shape remains visible. A messenger from the giants reaches the ancient scribe carrying two visions whose meaning has frightened those who received them. Enoch does not appear surprised. He has no need to challenge Mahaway or demand proof. The images already belong to a pattern he understands, the written surface emptied of nearly every name, and the garden whose trees have begun to disappear. Mahaway had carried them as separate dreams. Enoch sees one warning. The tablet concerns the lives recorded within the world. The garden represents the world in which those lives have grown. If the garden is destroyed, the names vanish with it. If only a few names remain, then only a small part of that living order will continue. The dreams are two views of the same event. One reveals who will disappear. The other reveals what will happen to the world beneath them. The discovery should have brought clarity. Instead, it makes the warning more difficult to bear. The giants had hoped that one vision might explain the other in a way that offered escape. Perhaps the remaining names belonged to the strongest among them. Perhaps some protected place stood beyond the ruined garden. But Enoch's understanding offers no refuge built for giants. The names that remain belong to a remnant. The future will continue, but not through those who presently dominate the earth. Mahaway listens while morning slowly gathers around the refuge. There is no thunder, no trembling ground, no visible sign that anything has changed. Yet Enoch's calmness gives the interpretation a weight no spectacle could have carried. The tablet is not merely a record. In the world of the ancient story, a written name can represent identity, memory, and a place among the living. To remove a name is to declare that its age has ended. To preserve one is to allow something to cross beyond the destruction. The garden carries the same meaning in another form. Its trees may represent generations, families, rulers, or powerful beings rooted in the living world. They have grown tall enough to seem permanent. Their branches spread across the land. Yet height does not decide what survives. The greatest trees are removed alongside the rest. Only a limited remnant remains after the garden falls. This is the first part of Enoch's answer. The dreams announce a division. Many disappear. A few continue. But Mahaway still does not understand the force that will create that division. The giants have enemies, yet no rival kingdom could reach every tree in the garden at once. No army could erase nearly every name from a single record in one movement. Then water enters the interpretation. Not as a sudden declaration, but as a detail already hidden inside the dreams. Haya had watched the names disappear from the written surface. The marks did not seem to be crossed out one by one. They were removed together, as though something had passed over the tablet and carried them away. Ohia's garden had not fallen like a forest cut by workers. Its destruction spread through the whole landscape. The roots themselves seemed unable to remain where they had grown. The images begin to change in Mahaway's memory. Writing washed from a surface. Earth losing its hold around the roots. A garden surrounded by a force that no wall can resist. Beyond the refuge, streams still move quietly between stones. Wells still hold the sky within them. The world does not yet fear its own water. But Mahaway now understands what the giants could not. The threat is not an approaching army. It will not stop at the edge of a settlement or turn aside from a strong gate. It will move across every boundary the giants recognize and erase the world in which their strength has meaning. The Book of Giants presents this warning within an ancient religious tradition. It is not modern scientific proof of a global flood. Within the story, however, the dreams point toward the catastrophe remembered in the Enochic and biblical world as the flood. The garden is the age before the waters. The disappearing names belong to those who will not pass beyond it. The few that remain point toward Noah and his family. Mahaway had come expecting instructions for survival. Instead, he learns that the future has already been placed in other hands. The giants assumed that the remnant would be chosen from among the most powerful. Their world had taught them that size, knowledge, and force determined who endured. If only a few names remained, surely those names would belong to beings no ordinary human could overcome. But the warning reverses that order. The future belongs to a small human household. Noah does not rule the giants. He does not possess their physical strength or command the world around him. Yet in the tradition surrounding the fragments, his family becomes the narrow path through which life enters the age that follows. The giants are not being shown how to join that future. They are being shown that it will exist without them. For Mahaway, this may be the hardest part of Enoch's answer. Destruction is terrifying, but survival elsewhere carries another kind of finality. It means the world will not end completely when the giants disappear. Rivers will still move. Children will still be born. New names will be written. History will continue after leaving them behind. Enoch sees why this ending has come close. According to the wider Enochic tradition, the disorder began when the Watchers crossed a forbidden boundary and brought forms of knowledge into the human world. The stories associate their teaching with metalworking, weapons, celestial observations, and hidden properties of nature. The danger was not knowledge itself. It was that power grew faster than wisdom and restraint. The giants inhabited a world transformed by broken limits. Greater knowledge had increased their reach, and strength had made resistance seem temporary. Every obstacle could be answered with more force. Every boundary appeared negotiable because earlier boundaries had already been crossed. Now the dreams reveal a consequence their power cannot reverse. No weapon can restore the erased names. No craft can anchor a garden when the ground itself is giving way. The world the giants helped shape has reached a point where greater strength no longer offers a solution. Mahaway looks toward the road he must follow home. One question remains. Why send a warning if it contains no clear route of escape? The fragments leave the answer partly open. The dreams may have come too late for the age of the giants to be changed. They may have been less an instruction than a final unveiling, showing the powerful what their world had become before it disappeared. There may once have been more to the warning in lines now lost. But what survives suggests that understanding alone cannot save those who refuse to become different from what they have been. The giants can recognize the signs. They can seek Enoch. They can hear the meaning. Yet escaping the catastrophe might require them to abandon the very order that made them giants, the violence, dominance, and broken limits through which they understood themselves. Enoch gives Mahaway no weapon and no design for a hidden city. He gives him an interpretation. The messenger had expected a solution. He receives a verdict. Daylight has fully reached the distant refuge when Mahaway begins his return. The road is the same one he crossed before, but its familiar details now seem altered. Birds pass over the hills. A stream moves between dark stones. Light gathers on the surface of a quiet pool. Before meeting Enoch, Mahaway might have seen water only as rest during a long journey. Now every ripple carries the shadow of the tablet. Every exposed root recalls the garden. The world has not changed. His understanding of it has. He travels away from Enoch carrying an answer heavier than the questions he brought. The dreams announce the end of the giants' order. The names left behind do not appear to be theirs. The catastrophe is connected with the disorder already spread across the earth. There is no promise that the giants can preserve themselves. Only the knowledge that others will continue. Mahaway may consider whether to soften what he has learned. The story does not preserve his private thoughts, but his task is clear. Ohaya and Haya are waiting. They believe Enoch will reveal which enemy approaches, where safety lies, or how the garden can be defended. They do not yet know that the surviving names point toward Noah. They do not know that the answer offers them no place in the age beyond the waters. Far away, the world of the giants still appears secure. Their settlements remain standing. Fires burn. Voices carry across the open land. Those who fear them continue to move beneath their authority. Ohaya watches the horizon for Mahaway's return. Haya turns again to the image of the written surface, searching his memory for some mark he failed to recognize. The few remaining names have become more troubling than those that vanished. They contain the possibility of survival. But survival for whom? The giants have received the truth while everything around them still appears permanent. No wall has fallen. No river has escaped its banks. The sky has not opened. Nothing visible seems powerful enough to erase them. This is what makes the waiting so strange. Their world continues its ordinary movement even though its ending has already entered their dreams. Ohaya returns to the garden. Perhaps the trees were not merely falling. Perhaps they were being removed from the earth altogether. He remembers the spaces left behind, the sudden emptiness where living forms had stood. Haya remembers the names disappearing. Neither image reveals how long remains before vision becomes event. They can only wait for the messenger. As Mahaway draws closer, the road enters familiar land. Far beyond the hills, clouds gather along the horizon. Wind moves through the grasses in long, uneven breaths. The distant structures of the giant settlements appear. He has returned. Those waiting recognize him before he reaches them. Something in his approach reveals that Enoch did not offer the answer they wanted. The giants gather once more. The place may be the same where Ohia and Haya first compared their dreams, but the uncertainty has changed. Before, they feared symbols they could not read. Now the meaning is approaching them in the form of a messenger. Mahaway carries no tablet from Enoch. No map. No promise of a distant refuge. He stands before the giants and connects the visions. The garden is their world. The names belong to those living within it. The destruction of one is the erasure of the other. Water will overtake the order they know. Most names will disappear. A remnant will survive. Then Mahaway reveals what makes the answer unbearable. The remaining names are connected not with the giants, but with Noah and the small human family through whom life will continue. For one brief moment, the word remnant may sound like hope. Then the giants understand whose hope it is. The visions were not given to show them where to escape. They were given to show them that the future had chosen another path. What follows in the damaged story is incomplete. Fear, appeals, uncertainty, and the shadow of judgment remain within the fragments, but no simple rescue appears. The giants know what is approaching. Their strength remains. Their settlements still stand. And they continue to inhabit the very world the warning has condemned. The tragedy is not that they lacked knowledge. They sought the answer and received it. The tragedy is that the answer arrived while they were still unable to stop being giants. Soon, the garden will no longer be only a dream. The names will no longer disappear only from a vision. Yet another mystery has already begun. If the warning was intended only for Ohia, Haya, Mahaway, and the other giants, then its meaning should have ended with their world. Their names should have vanished with the garden. Their fear should have disappeared into the age before the flood. Instead, someone preserved the story. Another person copied it. The warning crossed languages, lands, and centuries. Damaged fragments waited in desert caves until a later civilization could read the few names that remained. Why carry forward the final dreams of beings whose world was already gone? Why preserve a warning delivered too late to save those who received it? The giants were not merely being told that they would disappear. They were being shown that the world would remember their mistake. ##. If the giants disappeared, who carried their warning forward? Long after their world had passed into distant memory, an unknown scribe sat beside a small lamp and opened an aging manuscript. The room was quiet. Warm light moved across the table, touching a bowl of dark ink and the rough edges of the older pages. Some letters had faded. A damaged line ended where part of the writing surface had already broken away. The scribe leaned closer and copied the surviving names. Ohia, Haya, Mahaway. Each name was formed slowly, letter by letter. A careless mark might change it. A damaged word misunderstood tonight might never be corrected again. The scribe did not live in the age of the giants. The warning had reached him from a world no living person remembered. Yet he prepared another copy. Parchment and ink could not endure forever. Every ancient book depended upon someone deciding that its words deserved to live again. So the names entered fresh ink. And the warning continued. No complete chain of scribes can be followed from the earliest form of the story to the manuscripts found near Qumran. The roads between them have disappeared. The people who carried the text left few traces of themselves. But copies associated with the Book of Giants eventually entered the collection of writings now known through the Dead Sea Scrolls. Then the manuscripts fell silent. Fragments were placed in caves near the Dead Sea, where dry darkness closed around them. Outside, settlements changed, armies crossed the land, and new communities inherited the ancient roads. The world of the giants had vanished within the story. Now the world of the scribes vanished around the manuscripts. Only the fragments remained. When they returned to light more than 2,000 years later, the beings once described as immense had been reduced to pieces of parchment small enough to rest in a human hand. A partial sentence. The edge of a dream. A name separated from the scene that once surrounded it. The parallel is difficult to ignore. In Haya's vision, most of the names disappeared and only a few remained. The Book of Giants survived in the same way. Most of the text was lost. Only several names, dreams, and broken scenes escaped the silence. The caves preserved no complete answer. They preserved enough to show that the warning had once existed. Yet the story did not remain only beside the Dead Sea. Related forms of the Book of Giants tradition traveled much farther east. Centuries later, Manichaean communities copied and adapted versions of the story as their religion moved across languages, empires, and trade routes. Fragments connected with a Manichaean Book of Giants were eventually discovered near Turfan in Central Asia, thousands of kilometers from the Judean desert. The physical manuscripts from Qumran were not carried there. These were related versions shaped by different communities. Names could change. Scenes could be reordered. Translation could alter the sound and emphasis of the story. But its central form remained recognizable. Powerful beings learned that destruction was approaching. They sought an interpretation. The world they ruled would continue without them. Between Judea and Central Asia lay deserts, mountain passes, crowded markets, and roads followed by merchants carrying silk, paper, prayers, and stories. The warning may have passed through many hands before reaching each new community. One language softened a name, another reshaped a scene. Yet beneath those changes, the same image kept moving eastward, beings who seemed unconquerable discovering that their world had already begun to slip beyond their control. The survival of this pattern is more remarkable than the survival of any single page. Parchment could decay. A library could burn. A community could disappear. But another person, somewhere along the road, chose to copy the warning again. Why? The scribes who preserved the story lived long after the giants were believed to have vanished. The dreams could no longer help Ohia or Haya. Mahaway's journey could not be repeated. Enoch's interpretation had already reached those for whom it was first intended. The warning had failed to save them. Yet later readers continued to find something inside it. Some may have understood the story as an account of rebellion against the order of creation. The Watchers crossed a boundary, and the world that followed became disordered. Others may have heard an explanation for the corruption before the flood, when violence and pride had spread beyond restraint. To readers living beneath harsh rulers, the giants may have resembled those who believed power placed them beyond judgment. Others may have heard a warning about knowledge used without wisdom, or about a society that could recognize signs of collapse while continuing unchanged. The meaning shifted as the story crossed cultures. Yet each community that copied it seems to have found something reaching beyond the original fate of the giants. Within the worldview of its ancient authors, the giants were extraordinary beings belonging to a sacred past of watchers, visions, judgment, and the flood. This interpretation deserves respect as part of the religious world that created and preserved the text, though the fragments themselves do not establish supernatural giants as scientific history. Another possibility is that the figures preserve transformed memories of powerful human rulers or elites. Storytelling often enlarges those who dominate an age. A king who once terrified a region may grow beyond human scale as his name passes through generations. Political power becomes physical size, and an ancient ruling order becomes a race of giants. But the most enduring interpretation does not require the giants to be either ordinary rulers or enormous beings. They can also represent civilization itself when power becomes greater than wisdom. A society becomes giant-like when it assumes that controlling the present gives it ownership of the future. It sees limits as barriers meant to be broken and warnings as distant problems that can be answered later. This is why later readers could recognize the story without living in the world of Ohaya and Haya. The warning did not depend only upon the giants' bodies. It depended upon their pattern. They received signs before visible destruction. They sought someone capable of understanding those signs. The answer reached them while their settlement still stood and their authority remained intact. Nothing around them appeared powerful enough to erase their world. Yet the end had already entered their dreams. Every great civilization is tempted to view earlier ruins from a safe distance. Fallen kingdoms seem less advanced, less informed, or less prepared. Their collapse becomes something that happened because they lacked the knowledge and institutions of the present. From within a powerful age, permanence can feel almost reasonable. Its monuments appear too great to vanish. Its systems seem too complex to fail. Its understanding of the world seems deeper than anything possessed by those who came before. The Book of Giants did not predict modern society. Its ancient authors knew nothing of the technologies, nations, or institutions of later centuries. Its relevance comes through recognition, not prophecy. Power changes its appearance. Pride remains recognizable. The modern listener need not believe the dreams were secretly addressed to the present in order to feel their unease. The pattern is enough. A warning appears. Those with the greatest power assume that survival will belong to them. They study the danger without changing the conditions that created it. The future quietly chooses another path. Was the warning meant for us? Not literally. The surviving fragments do not speak directly to the modern world. Ohaya did not dream of distant cities, and Mahaway did not carry a message intended for people thousands of years beyond his age. But stories often survive because their first meaning is not their last. The scribes who preserved the Book of Giants may not have expected the giants to return in physical form. They may have understood that any civilization could begin to resemble them. The warning returns whenever dominance is mistaken for permanence, whenever consequences are treated as problems for another generation, and whenever understanding fails to produce change. This does not provide one final explanation of the fragments. Their meaning remains partly open. But it offers a reason the story could cross so many boundaries after the world it described was gone. Its pattern was still alive. Near the end of the journey, the image of the written surface returns. At first, the disappearing names seemed to represent only fear. To be erased was to lose identity, memory, and a place in the world. Yet written names also reveal what history chooses to keep. Entire cities vanished while preserving only the titles of a few rulers. Libraries disappeared, leaving behind a single quotation from a book no one could read again. And still, these names endured. Ohaya, Haya, Mahaway, Enoch, Noah. The giants had feared that their names would disappear. Instead, the names survived in a form they would never have chosen. They did not preserve the giants' authority. They did not prove that their world was eternal. They preserved the moment those beings learned that their world could end. The name survived as a warning rather than a triumph. Then the garden returns. Its trees rise across the dream, tall enough to seem permanent. Their branches cover the ground, while their roots disappear beneath the surface. A civilization can resemble such a garden. Its visible strength may continue growing even while the conditions supporting it begin to fail below. The tallest tree cannot command the ground to hold it. The image fades, and the story returns once more to the caves near the Dead Sea. Inside, the air is dry and still. The community that knew the manuscripts is gone. No lamp burns beside the fragments. Dust rests in the narrow spaces between stones. Only faint Aramaic letters remain. An enormous story has been reduced to damaged pieces. A partial name. Several words from a dream. A messenger traveling toward an answer hidden beyond a missing line. Each fragment is physically slight, no larger than something that could be lost beneath dust or carried away by a careless breath. Yet behind those small pieces stands an entire vanished world, the gathering of the giants, Mahaway's distant journey, Enoch's answer, and the silence before catastrophe. The caves held almost none of that world, and somehow they held enough for its warning to reach another listener after more than 2,000 years. The fragments preserve no cities of the giants. They do not reveal every detail of their warning or the complete reaction when Mahaway returned. They preserve only enough. Enough to know that signs appeared before the catastrophe. Enough to know that the powerful sought an interpretation. Enough to know that understanding arrived while their world still seemed secure. Enough to know that their future belonged to someone else. The complete world of the giants is gone. Whether they are understood as beings from sacred tradition, legendary memories of human rulers, or symbols of civilization, their story now survives only in fragments. But the warning remains. A world grows powerful. Its reach expands. Its inhabitants begin to believe the limits that governed earlier ages no longer apply to them. Then a few disturbing signs appear. Those signs are understood. And still the path continues. The deepest question is no longer whether giants once physically walked the earth. It is whether humanity has begun to walk in their footsteps. The faint writing offers no final answer. The fragments remain silent beneath careful light, carrying names that nearly disappeared and a warning that outlived the world from which it came. Outside the caves, night settles over the Dead Sea. The cliffs fade into darkness. Ancient paths disappear beneath the stars, and the water rests quietly below. The giants disappeared long ago, but the path they followed has never been entirely empty.